Coming up on Tech News Weekly, Facebook and Twitter, they're approaching political ads differently, apparently, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, how schools are tracking students who just want to use the bathroom. Also, we take a look at all the tech that's hiding out inside the new Airpods Pro, speeding up playback of movies, and the cost of Amazon Basics. Up next on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 106, recorded Thursday, October 31st, 2019.
This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology's Advanced Technology Center is like no other testing and research lab, with over 150 different security services and applications, including OEMs like Cisco Umbrella. And it's virtual, so you can access it 24/7. To learn more and get insights into all that it offers, go to wwt.com/twit.
And by Ring Central. With Ring Central, you'll get everything you need in one place for your business communication needs. With all-in-one cloud phone, video conferencing, and team messaging, staying connected has never been easier. Save with their holiday bundle offer and don't pay until 2020 when you go to ringcentral.com/TNW.
Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I'm Mikah Sargent.
I am Jason Howell. I have no emotion about what you were doing just there.
You know, I understand. It's truly you in true form.
Thank you. It is indeed truly me. Let's do the news.
Let's do that.
The impact and power of political ads on social media and on the internet at large has never been more apparent. Facebook continues to be at the heart of this discussion around disinformation and what online platforms should do to educate users when the truth is cast away, often by leading politicians. Seth Rosenblatt is the founder and CEO of the Parallax and joins us now to talk about political ads online. Welcome to the show, Seth.
Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you here. I apologize for our costumes. So first things first, Facebook is facing a lot of heat on this topic, obviously, by users, politicians, and its own employees. So maybe let's start by talking a little bit about how Facebook is navigating these complexities. It's hard to say that Facebook's doing everything right, but what is right at this point? What's your take on this?
Sure. Well, I think, it's super interesting that in the middle of all of this that's going on, and there's a complex a series of threads integrating disinformation campaigns, which have been around for a very long time, as well as political ads on Facebook, which are a hot topic because Facebook's employees are currently up in arms about it, or at least some of them are. As well as the role that Facebook can play in influencing elections. Twitter decides to make an announcement saying that as of November 1st, they are out of the election ad business. Politicians will no longer be allowed to take out ads on Twitter. Twitter's obviously got a much smaller market cap than Facebook, has a much smaller reach. But it really does stand out as an interesting contrast to Facebook, which has been facing an increasing series of louder and louder calls to take some form of remedial action towards dealing with these situations. Right now, what we see Facebook doing is taking down disinformation campaigns when they find them, as they become aware of them. But beyond that, it's really hard to say what steps they're looking at doing besides talking about it.
Right. Besides admitting that there is some sort of problem. Yesterday there was a earnings call. Mark Zuckerberg talked a lot about this on the call. Stated that it would resist the urge to pull back on free expression. But I mean, what about addressing the concerns around paid amplification of disinformation? Like, do you feel like Facebook's doing enough to address that? Is the better approach to take the Twitter route, which is like, you know what, this is all too messy for us to even deal with. We're out. What do you think?
Well, I can't speak for my personal take here. I don't know how relevant opinion is. But certainly the experts that I speak with say that Facebook needs to be doing a lot more to deal with the situation. And certainly Facebook's employees, or at least a vocal group of them who wrote this letter and signed it, and then somebody wound up leaking it to the New York Times over the weekend, feel that Facebook needs to do a lot more. One of the people I spoke with in my story, David Carroll, who is one of the few people who's had success suing over Cambridge Analytica, pointed out that this isn't the right of free speech, it's the right of free reach. And well, that's got a nice buzzy hook to it. I don't know that he's wrong. If you have money, being able to buy advertising certainly gives you a bigger reach. And because Facebook tends to flatten out, just like the rest of the internet, it flattens out messaging. So somebody who is a verified authority gets the same weight as somebody who's a crackpot. This can wind up, really helping spread disinformation. And we saw a bit of this over the summer, where even the internet's own cesspool of YouTube banned a video, a deepfake video of Nancy Pelosi, that Facebook chose to allow to run on its networks. So that's something that Facebook clearly wants to say it's taking a hands-off approach. It's not working for politicians. It's not working for a small subset of its employees, which may grow. And we should keep in mind that, when employees take action, it starts off small, but the outrage at Google, for example, last year wound up with a 20,000 person walkout around the world. And that's around 1/5 of Google's employees. That's nothing to sneeze at. So clearly, this is not going to be the end of the story. This is just another turn in it.
Can I go back to, you said Facebook allowed the video to run, whereas YouTube did not. When you say allow, do you mean that they saw this video, it was reported as being a fake, and they still made the decision to let it continue to be? Is that what you mean by allowed?
Yes, exactly. They chose to not take it down when other networks had chosen to take it down. And I think certainly when, if you're a legitimate organization and you are looking to spread fake news or disinformation campaigns, or even misinformation, which is sort of the larger group that disinformation falls into, where it may not be intentionally misleading. There is, certainly people feel that there is a bigger responsibility to take action towards stopping that kind of stuff when you have the ability to.
Yeah, and they're kind of, we talked a little bit about this on This Week in Google yesterday. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place because it's impossible to make everyone happy in this regard. Some people are going to say, no, what you need to do with, disinformation, if it's not real fact, then it needs to be completely excised from the platform. Others will say that's intruding upon one's freedom of speech. And it kind of reminds me a little bit about truthiness. If you remember truthiness from the early 2000s, which kind of became a big deal, I think around 2005. And so when I look at now versus then, I tend to think like there are differences, but it's hard to pinpoint what they are because it's not like disinformation is a now thing. Right. Disinformation in politics has been there for a very long time. But is the difference what you were talking about earlier, the difference between freedom of speech versus freedom of reach, that reach is just so well defined within these social platforms that it takes that disinformation to another level that's maybe more dangerous?
Yeah. Well, I think there's certainly something going on here that relates to Facebook's business model, where they want anybody to be able to buy any ad on Facebook. And, and they don't really want to get into who's running ads or why they're running ads. They just want people to be able to buy ads. And right. I think that really, runs into problems when you are looking at paid political speech from people who have agendas. Facebook, makes it very, very hard to figure out who's paying for ads, where their money is coming from, if they're a legitimate organization or not. And yet it makes it very easy to find out, who individuals are that you're selling the ads to. So there's a disparity there between the privacy of the Facebook user and the privacy of the Facebook advertiser, and I think that should clue people in to who's really holding the power in this equation.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Zuckerberg did say on the earnings call that better transparency, in his opinion, Facebook at large, is the most effective approach. So that means keeping the information there, let's say, or the disinformation, whatever you want to call it, but calling out that maybe it's untrue or whatever the case may be, instead of outright banning those ads. Do experts feel that Facebook's kind of transparency approach is working right now? I stepped away from Facebook a little more than a year ago, so I'm actually pretty unaware of how these tools are actually working in practice.
Not as Facebook would like, certainly not as the experts would like. One person I spoke with, Dave Troy, who's a disinformation campaign expert and a community activist. He feels that Facebook needs to take a stronger hand in weighting ads and weighting who is trying to sell ads. If it doesn't want to get into the business of censoring ads outright, it should verify, he says, who is buying ads. That should be part of the ad, so it should be clear to Facebook users who the ad is coming from. And if you are a known organization, that ad should be weighted more heavily by the algorithm than one that's not. So if President Trump wants to buy an ad, that probably will get more play because he's sent in a postcard that has a verification code, which is something that Facebook already does, versus some dark money site that has no provenance, that we don't really know where it's coming from. We don't know who's sponsoring it and so on. But that's not happening yet. And so that's something that Troy says that Facebook could be doing. Basically, he says, the more trust, the more rights. So if you are able to verify who you are, what you're doing, where your money is coming from, you get weighted more heavily in the Facebook algorithm. And if you're some Russian disinformation campaign or Iranian disinformation campaign, and you're not willing to verify your identity, then you get kicked to the curb.
Got it. Well, Seth, you're doing amazing work with the Parallax. So that's the-parallax.com for folks who want to check out, your site and your work. You're writing there. If people want to follow you personally online, where can they find you?
I'm at Seth R on Twitter and on Instagram, and look for the Parallax on Facebook.
Right on. Seth, thank you so much. It's great to get you on the show finally.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you too.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So coming up next, technology is replacing the awkward, oversized hall pass in schools. But what are the privacy implications? Well, we'll answer that next. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. WWT began building their Advanced Technology Center, that's ATC, about 10 years ago, and it has grown exponentially. It's like no other testing and research lab. In fact, the lab contains more than $500 million in equipment from hundreds of OEMs ranging from heavyweights like Cisco, NetApp, and VMware to emerging disruptors like Tanium, Equinix, and Expanse. WWT is a trusted partner who stays with you over the years. Many of their customers have been with them for over a decade because they know WWT is where they can go to get the answers they need to make sure their business runs right. Their ATC is an incubator for IT innovation and offers on-demand and schedulable labs like Cisco ACI, segmentation migration, and hundreds of other labs representing the newest advances in endpoint security architecture, software-defined networking, network automation, primary and secondary storage. You can learn about products before you launch. WWT's engineers use these environments to quickly spin up proofs of concept and pilots using the sandbox so customers can confidently select the best solutions. In many cases, this reduces concept time from months to weeks, which increases speed to market. They offer Lab as a Service, a dedicated lab space within the ATC. Here, customers can perform programmatic testing using the vast technology ecosystem that WWT has already built. It's virtual, so you can take full advantage of ATC's unique benefits anywhere in the world 24/7. WWT engineers work in these labs every day, beta testing new equipment and building reference architectures and custom integrations to help their customers make decisions and see results faster and with much less investment. The time is finally here. WWT has launched their new digital platform encompassing the ATC ecosystem. This ecosystem creates a multiplier effect of knowledge, speed, and agility anytime, anywhere around the world for their customers. Get access to articles, case studies, hands-on labs, and other tools that make the difference in today's fast-paced world. To learn more about WWT, the ATC, and to sign up for access to their new on-demand lab platform, go to wwt.com/twit and create an account today. WWT simplifies the complex. That's wwt.com/twit. WWT, delivering business and technology outcomes around the world.
All right, so schools, they've changed a lot since I was in class.
Oh, no.
Apparently my ears are falling off. It's okay because I'm a musician.
Yeah.
Schools have changed a lot since I was in class. Namely, getting a hall pass to use the bathroom used to be one of the few moments of a school day that belonged entirely to the student. Mm-hmm. And here comes technology to ruin the day. Joining us to talk about e-Hallpass and other related topics is Heather Kelly from the Washington Post. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
I love that you're a taco today.
Taco. Talk about it.
Word up on
It's
the taco.
Taco Thursday.
I love it. Fantastic. So we're not here to talk about tacos, although they are making me kind of hungry. Let's talk about e-Hallpass to begin with. What exactly is e-Hallpass and how does it work?
So e-Hallpass is kind of the future of kids having to go to the bathroom. When you're in school and you have to get up, you can't just like grab the object by the door anymore. You log out from a Chromebook, or slightly more disturbing, there's also an option to have it on your personal phone if you're a kid. And it doesn't use GPS, so it's not tracking like that, but it will remember how many times you went to the bathroom, how long you were there. And it keeps this data for as long as the school wants it. So, I mean, in theory, they could have in high school 4 years of your bathroom data. And it can also do things like flag people who might be abusing the Hallpass system. If a couple of kids keep getting into fights, they can have red flags put on them so they're never in the halls at the same time. And if you're gone, say more than 10 minutes, it's up to the administrators, a little alert will go to the office and somebody will come check on you.
How you doing in there? That's wow.
Everything okay?
Still going?
Wow.
I mean, my question was going to be why school administrators feel like a tool like this is necessary, but it kind of, I don't know, sometimes technology smacks of we do it because we can. It kind of feels that way with this. Would you agree, or I don't know, is there a deeper need for something like this?
I mean, vaping was the explanation I was given.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I don't know does somebody who's vaping take longer than an average bathroom trip? That's a question I don't know. I mean, the number one reason I was given was in an emergency at a school, you can instantly see in real time where everybody is. But if that was really the main use case, you could delete the data at the end of every day. And it would definitely like kind of decrease the creepy factor. But schools aren't doing that.
Okay. And so the retention is like spreading out to like a year or longer of all this information about how often they go to the bathroom, essentially.
Yeah, it's completely up to the school to decide when they delete it. Yeah.
I understand that you mentioned the red flag thing, that if you have multiple students who regularly get into fights, then to not have them in the hallway at the same time, I suppose there's a little bit of a understanding there, but I also think this goes back to sort of the root of the problem, which is that there needs to be mediation in place. If you have two students who regularly get into fights, then maybe there's an underlying issue. I'm curious, with the folks that you've talked to about this, is this sort of the argument that teachers and school officials don't have time for dealing with the underlying issues there, and so this is a way, sort of I don't know if to call it a stopgap measure, but just like, we can't go that far with it, so we'll just make sure to track everybody and know where everybody is at all times. this feels like a patch, I guess is what I'm saying. And do any of the people that you talk to sort of recognize it as such, or are they sort of just all in on it? The people that are implementing this, are they very excited about having this technology, or are they saying, well, this is what we're using for now?
I mean, one of the biggest reasons they want to have it is, and goes kind of for all ed tech, is they want to save teachers time. Like managing a classroom is actually a huge time suck. If you've got, kids coming and going, you're taking away from learning. One thing I did hear though from kids, not teachers, is that this actually takes more time than just grabbing a hall pass. So I don't really know if that defense will stand up. The schools, they kind of frame it as I guess school is getting a little more dangerous, or there's a higher chance of emergency. You've got shootings or fires, and it kind of seems like a reaction to that fear more than anything else. And for the fighting setting, the makers of e-Hallpass also said it was specifically like if you have a school with gang violence, you can basically flag both gangs and make sure people from each side are not in the hall. I don't know. That seems like a very tricky problem that they really do have to deal with, and you have to wonder if this is the best way.
Well, speaking of the thing you mentioned that some teachers are saying it took less time, I used my banana hall pass as an example, but I can remember when I was in high school and it was time for a hall pass, teachers would be very creative about their hall passes. And so then, there'd be a teacher who had like a giant surfboard, and that was the hall pass. And you had to lug the thing with you.
It's literally a ball and chain.
Yeah,
right?
It made it
You're
inconvenient.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you just went and used the restroom and you came back. And I suppose I understand that. That's kind of what I'm curious about too. How are teachers feeling about this versus the administrators who put these policies into place?
It seems completely mixed. Like some teachers, it also depends how the school has it set up. When a kid has to go to the bathroom, a teacher has to approve it by entering their special teacher code. The other step is they also log the kid back in. So instead of just, hey, go to the bathroom and then letting it go, there's a whole second step of, oh, you're back from the bathroom, and now we can officially see like how down to the second how long you were gone. It sounds like for most teachers it's actually a whole other step, but the application is trying to make it so it's less time, not more, is the goal.
Now, part of your article, of course, focuses on e-Hallpass, and then you kind of get into just the wider kind of idea of how technology is filtering into schools to solve all these problems and what that could mean in the long run. Talk a little bit about Thrively. I had not heard of Thrively before, and you write specifically about one parent who needed to go through a number of hurdles in order to really understand what the data was that was being collected on their students. And I mean, this is important. This is a very now thing, data collection. So talk a little bit about Thrively.
I thought that was like a great example of how hard it is for parents to get information about what kind of technology their kids are using and then even just opt out. And now the weird thing about that story is this mom's kid used this application before the mom got a notification from the school, which came a few days later. And it's basically a personality assessment. And then it uses that information to kind of select a couple career paths, maybe nudge you in that direction. There's a few different ways it could be used. The mom didn't want it. She asked to be opted out. And the principal said, hey, why don't you talk to the CEO of the company first? I emailed a little bit with the CEO, and he's like, I always try to talk to parents who want to opt out. And of the 4 parents who have tried, I've talked 3 of them into staying with the program. And it's a very kind of unusual, hands-on, and to this mom, slightly disturbing way to have to deal with that program your kid is using.
That feels very much like when you try to quit your satellite cable provider and they keep running you up the, no, can you talk to, can you talk, and you
enough
can
points
never,
of friction.
You can never say, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't even really have a question to ask there. I just find that really unsettling.
I imagine it's like a smaller program and he's trying to get it off the ground. And maybe that's his customer service.
Isn't that nice of him? One thing that I've been thinking a lot about lately is like, because we have technology, should we be using it? And right now, especially, there's so much tracking going on. It's such a part of the conversation around technology. that, and how that filters into our kids, right? Like kids have phones, parents give their kids phones. There's plenty of ways for parents to track their kids, and now it's happening at school. What once was such an Orwellian kind of thought of the future of, we never want to be there, this will never happen, this is science fiction. Now, and with tools like these, even though they have a use and they have a reason for existing, are creating this kind of like comfort with this tracking. And, obviously it's a judgment call whether that's a good or a bad thing, but are students aware of that shift? Or is this just this is just like the way life is now? And, there's not a whole lot of reason to kind of push against it.
I think so. One of the kids that was upset about this started a change.org petition. It was very impressive. And he was upset about being tracked. So I think the kids are paying attention. On the flip side, I don't personally do this yet. My kids are too little, but parents will sometimes give their kids a phone. And one of the conditions is, I have to be able to see your location wherever you are. I have to be able to track you. You can check in. And so in some ways, we're also training them ourselves for this future of always being seen and tracked and kind of under surveillance. And there's some interesting research on what this actually does to kids. And one thought is that it can decrease creativity, kind of being in this authoritarian situation of always being watched. And I think that's something we're going to hear a lot about in the future of what's the impact of this on these actual kids.
Yeah, I would agree. It definitely feels that way. It's also hard. It also feels so big and so overwhelming that it's hard to feel like you have any sort of power or agency to resist against it. Because even if I, as a parent, were to push against, those practices in a number of ways at school now, there's just all these other ways that they're being conditioned. Someone in chat, Stoic Squirrel, said this is teaching kids how to live in a police state. And there's some truth to that, right? Like if 20, 30, 40 years down the line, we've reached some random point of no return, you could potentially look back and look to, these last 10 years and say, oh, well, of course this happened. Like we were conditioning them to be okay with it.
Yeah, conditioning them that we have to give in to this supposed but genuinely self-imposed inevitability of technology,
right?
Where it's a falsehood that this stuff has to exist, and this, no matter what this stuff would have come along, and we have to accept it, we have to adopt it. We don't, and we are through society like accepting that that's the case, and it makes me think a lot about having Amazon Echoes and things like that, where your kid goes over to somebody else's house and they've got those devices there, and now we're suddenly used to talking to speakers that are listening, and it's just the conditioning is taking place, and the fact that it's everywhere does make it very difficult.
Sure.
What do we do? What do, other than a change.org petition, are there things that students, parents, administrators, teachers are doing to address the concerns that exist with this technology?
I think so. But first, so I have a 5-year-old, and the other day he did something bad, I'm sure. And he said, "Mama, did you get that on the security camera?" It's like, we have a Nest Cam, and he just assumed he was being watched all the time. Maybe we said it as a joke. And I had to be like, you know what? You are not being watched all the time at home anyways. And I wanted to make it very clear, like, you are not like on your own little reality television show. I promise I'm not watching you. I want to trust you. And so I think that's one thing parents can do, is they can start by like telling their kids we trust them and showing them we trust them by tracking them a minimal amount. In schools, it's complicated because we want to trust the school district to make these decisions for us. I mean, in some districts, you've got, I don't know, hundreds of applications between grades and middle school and high school. And I have a hard time reading one privacy policy. Can you imagine reading every single one for your kid? And we really want the schools to take care of that. And I'm not quite sure what the best approach is right now. Schools are very enamored with this. They're getting grants to go after like new kinds of ed tech. And even though the research isn't there for most of it, they're kind of drawn to it. And parents need to come in and be like, actually, can we just slow down? What is my kid using? Can I opt them out? And I think, one by one is not going to make a difference, but it might eventually send a message to the higher ups that this is not how we want our kids learning.
Fantastic advice. Heather Kelly with the Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com. Heather, if people want to follow your work specifically online, where can they find you?
I would start with my incredibly wonderful tweets, which is at Heather Kelly. Or today it's at Heather Helly because
I like what you did there. Fantastic.
That's good.
Heather, it's great to get you on. Thanks so much for hopping on today and being a taco. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Happy Halloween. We'll talk to you soon. All right, up next, Apple updated its AirPods, and we take a closer look at them. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Ring Central. Ring Central is the #1 global cloud phone system that does pretty much everything. Ring Central allows your business to have effortless communication. It's great for when you're on the go. You can work remotely and manage your business from your mobile device by seamlessly switching between desktop and mobile without dropping a call. It's kind of like magic. You can also route calls, video conference, utilize team messaging. You can even do online fax, and it's got some awesome integrations. It'll integrate with all of your favorite apps, Gmail, Zapier, Salesforce, Microsoft Outlook, and a whole lot more. You can take a look at their integrations and see what you think there and get a little creative there. You can retrieve voicemail, which also has a transcription feature. So if you happen to be stuck in a meeting and you don't have to listen, or you don't have the time, or you're just not in the right moment where you can listen, you can discreetly check your messages and read the transcriptions. That's really handy. The solution that grows with you and your company because it's easy to add additional users as you go along and as your company grows. Ring Central is more than just a phone system. You're going to simplify your workflow so you can connect easily with customers and employees. That's going to give you effortless service with any mode on any device anywhere. Their app provides flawless integration that lets you transition from your personal phone to your computer during a call. RingCentral's app is ahead of its time. It lets you send business SMS from your personal phone, so you don't have to have two devices everywhere you go. You don't even have to transfer your contacts into the app. It automatically populates them for you. And they even let you port existing numbers over from other services. RingCentral is the complete communication solution from one vendor. It starts as low as $19.99, saving you money and cutting your phone costs by at least 30%. They also have tremendous customer service 24/7 via telephone, live chat, and email if you need them. We've had RingCentral here at Twit for a long time, and it does everything as it needs to be. Our phones at Twit are with RingCentral, and we wouldn't have it any other way. When you sign up today, you'll get instant access to RingCentral's award-winning powerful phone system with text, fax, video conferencing, and more. So take advantage of their special holiday bundle offer for Tech News Weekly's audience only, and don't pay until 2020 when you go to ringcentral.com/TNW. That's RING central.com/TNW. We thank them for their support. Now, it's time to get serious, Mikah.
All right.
What you got?
Hold on. Let me just put down my RingCentral phone call.
Yes, hang up.
Talk to you later.
This is not the time. Hang up the banana phone.
All right. They've been rumored for a time, and, well, now they're here. Apple recently launched AirPods Pro, the noise-canceling premium audio version of its truly wireless in-ear headphones. Rene Ritchie of iMore and Vector and MacBreak Weekly is here to walk us through Apple's latest offering. Hello, Rene.
Hello, Mikah, Sargent. I'm so sad you didn't dress up for Halloween like I did.
What are you? Are you a human? Are you AirPods wearing a human?
I'm clearly a disembodied head wearing AirPods, Jason.
Well, let's start with this. What's the difference between your typical? This is not a setup for a joke, by the way. I'm genuinely asking. What's the difference between? Thank you for the sigh in the studio. What's the difference between AirPods and AirPods Pro? What makes these Pro?
Well, they stuck the word Pro at the end of it.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 3 additional letters. Yeah. No, so what they did with the AirPods Pro is, and we can debate the use of the word Pro endlessly, but Apple basically means the better, more expensive version of the other product, MacBook Pro, iPad Pro, iPhone Pro. Now we have AirPods and AirPods Pro. I'm going to keep surgeons generaling that all day. It's going to be terrible. But what they do is they take the AirPods form factor, they add interchangeable tips to them so you can change between small, medium, and large, which is something they did with the old school Apple in-ear headphones. They've added active adaptive noise cancellation, which is some of the sort of computational audio technology from the HomePod using the H1 chip, which is Apple's wearable in your ear silicon. It sounds funny. I have little computers in my ears, but I have 10 audio cores in each ear now and the will to use them. And this is the first time all 10 of them are firing. And they have those sort of sweat resistance, water resistance, those extra features that people grumbled about not having on the standard AirPods for a long time.
Okay, so that to me, there are 10 cores. Can you talk a little bit more about what magic is at work here in terms of Apple's silicon and how it is being used in concert with like the microphone that faces into the ear to listen to the ear canal, the microphone that faces out, how does it all come together and work? Especially like you said, the 10 audio cores.
So they built this huge lab outside of Apple Park where they do tons of audio testing. They have -2 decibel rooms. They have they have all the sorts of toys that you get when you have billions of dollars and the will to use them. And in there, they've been doing things for a while. Like, for example, depending on how you hold your iPhone to your ear, it tries to direct audio in the right direction for you. It does all these sorts of computational things. And what it's doing with the AirPods is first they have a vent on the back so that your ear doesn't feel all sealed away like in a dark room and alone. It has a little bit of breathing it can do, but they fire the audio into your ear and they sort of pull in all the audio from outside. So they have 3 microphones in total per AirPod Pro. And then they whatever is on the outside, they cancel so that never reaches your ear. But also what bounces back from your ear is measured against the sound that they know intrinsically that they're producing. And then it corrects for the spatiality of your ear because everyone's ear is slightly different. It tries to make sure that what's echoing around inside your ear chamber is as precise, as accurate as possible for what it wants to generate from the AirPod.
Wow. That's a lot that's going on.
Yeah, no
200 times per second.
Wow. So then what are we looking at with battery life here? I mean, that's a lot of computation taking place. Does that mean we're getting less battery life in the AirPods Pro, or are we looking at the same?
Slightly. So if you turn off the noise, so you can have noise cancellation, you can have transparency mode, which is noise cancellation, but it'll sort of let you hear some of what's happening on the outside. I call it like the share mode because it sounds real but digitized. It's like, I believe in love mode. And then you can just turn it off completely. And when it's off completely, it's the same as traditional AirPods. You get the 5 hours of battery life. When you turn either of those things on, though, noise canceling or transparency mode, you lose half an hour. So it goes down to 4.5 hours.
One thing I will say that I appreciate about the Pros is that they are smaller. There was something about the long, like, I don't know what you would call it.
The stem.
The stem. The long stem. I could never get used to it. But these actually blend in a little bit more, and I like the look of them. I did see that iFixit had posted a little bit of a teardown. These aren't performing super well with the teardown, right? But I guess the old ones weren't either. Like, is that anything to be concerned with? Are people really going to be busting these things open to fix them anytime soon?
Yeah, so 2 things. So they did reduce the size of the stem because they went with a system in package now. So the AirPod Silicon is part of a system in package, like the watch is part of it. So all of that is bundled in. So they don't need as much space. They still need some for the battery, obviously, right. And they still want a little bit because when it comes down, they can use time of flight to hear your voice from the 2 different microphones and they know what your voice is, so they can cancel out everything else. So it helps make you sound better. So they prefer having just a little bit of a stem, and also it gives you something to grip onto, and you can click on them now. There's a sort of a capacitive fake button like the MacBooks have always had, where it clicks in your ear, making you think you really click something, and it's just a bunch of lies. It's just a capacitive sort of surface. But for the recycling part of it, and for the opening it, they don't intend for any normal person to go inside these things. It's sort of the trade-off. You can make things that are super accessible, or you can make things that are super sleek, and you sort of have to balance those 2 things. And Apple has typically chosen every time to make things as small and as sealed as possible. And one of the concerns they had too is that people would take them apart, they'd break them, they would just throw them away. And the batteries in there, they don't want to end up in landfills. So if you take them back to Apple, they'll recycle, I think they said 85% of the AirPod, and they'll make sure the batteries are disposed of in a responsible way.
Now, I'm curious, did Apple talk any about earwax and hygiene and things like that, because what I noticed when I was unboxing mine is that the replaceable tips, the changeable tips, they each have this earwax guard on them. And so by getting a new pair of tips, if your earwax kind of clogs those, it's just basically the whole thing seems a lot more cleanable rather than what the internet has been suggesting with the first and second edition of AirPods, which was quite literally to suck on the AirPod until it makes a whistling sound, at which point they are cleaned out. Please don't do that. But I've already
put it in an autoclave. Don't do that.
Since I first mentioned that, I've gotten a couple tweets like, I did that and it worked. Ew, gross.
I'm so triggered right now. Okay.
So tell me, did Apple mention that at all when they were talking? Because I know that you got some information on the cost for replacement tips, but did they also talk about that wax guard that's on there at all?
Well, only because I instantly thought about you, and I was like, "This is Mikah Sargent's dream made true," because I know how clean you are with everything and with AirPods, and just the ability to, if you want to, if you lose a tip or if you just look at it and you're like, I'm not touching that thing, you can go to Apple, you can go to an Apple store, and for $3.95, they will sell you a new pair of tips. Not all 6, but whatever 2, like I want the small ones, the medium ones, or the large ones. They'll just sell that to you. And I figured Micah's never going to need to clean these things again. They're basically like wrappers. You wear it for a month, throw it away, get a new one.
Yeah, that's going to be me. Don't judge me. No, but I was curious about that. I think that this is, in my opinion, a better design that will hopefully make these last a little bit longer, because it seems to me that the folks who are complaining about losing the output in their original AirPods, who then did that horrible, horrible thing I'm not going to say again to clean them, were getting their sound back. And so if it was stuff clogging the grill that caused the issue, with that wax guard, then these have the potential to last a whole lot longer. And
the nice thing is they also don't have a stem. They don't have anything that's going into that into the silicone. So some of them do have that, and then they can't squeeze down much, or something gets trapped inside whatever part is inside this. This whole thing just comes off. It's flat on the other side. So not only can you squish it into your ears better, but once that thing is off, it is off. There's nothing else to clean.
Yeah, it clicks on and off. Now, one thing that folks touched on a little bit, so there was a Apple earnings call, and I have to touch on this. I'm curious, sort of the take on this. So it's my understanding that Mr. Cook was talking a little bit about AirPods Pro in relation to AirPods, and that he suggested that along with AirPods, someone might choose to buy a pair of AirPods Pro, where they can use the AirPods in normal situations, but would need to use the AirPods Pro for the noise cancellation features. And the sort of clap back to that, the response to that was that people who buy these are probably just going to use these and sort of give their other ones to somebody else or take them. Where do you see AirPods Pro sort of lining up in the offerings here? Is it, if someone comes to you and they say, I want some good in-ear headphones, do you just say, go for the AirPods Pro? Or is there a person who you would recommend normal AirPods to in any case?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because those conference calls are all sort of back and forth, and I think Tim meant that people who already had AirPods would buy new AirPods. Not that they necessarily keep them all, but that the noise cancellation would be so attractive that they want to replace them with these. But I think there is a market for both of these. I think there's some people who just, like, for example, I have this in my ear now, and I don't mind it, but there's some people who just really don't want anything in their ear, and the traditional AirPods just sit on top. There are also some people who don't want to spend this much money on AirPods, and they'll be like, oh, the other ones are fine. I don't need noise cancellation. I don't care about it. And I'm not going to spend $1 more than I absolutely have to get these things. And that gives them sort of, when any market matures, you want to segment that market. And this segments nicely by price, but also by functionality. So you can get more by paying more, or you can just stick with the traditional form factor if that's all that you want.
Awesome. Thank you. My last question, what was the first song you listened to try out the AirPods Pro?
So everyone has their go-to, and mine is Mr. Chuck from the autobiography of Chuck D. I love the way that it sounds. It's got bass. It's got Chuck D's voice, which I think is one of the best voices in the world. And I always put that on right away whenever I listen to new headphones.
When you mention bass, I have to imagine that's a difference between this and between the Pros and the regular, right? Because anytime I've had something sit on my ear versus like actually the silicone tips that like plug into the ear, the bass response is so much better. That would probably be a very good selection for that.
Yeah, and because there's a lot of things going on that makes it a tough compare. You have the noise cancellation, which changes the way that things sound compared to the traditional AirPods. And if you look at these compared to like even things like the Beats, the Power Beats Pro, those are noise isolation, not noise canceling. But because they're Beats, they do that little bit of extra bass. They have sort of a stronger opinion about what music should sound like. Apple first tunes to like the scientific precision that they can, then they give it to a bunch of funky artists and poets and musicians to make them sound more human. So they're lightly opinionated. The beats are strongly opinionated. So it's not like you're getting hit in the face by Dr. Dre, but it also is much boomier than the traditional AirPods.
Well, thank you for that colorful metaphor there at the end, Rene, and thank you for joining us. If people are looking to follow you online, see your review of AirPods Pro and all of your other great content, how can they do so?
They can see me on social networks at Rene Ritchie. They can go to youtube.com/Vector for all my videos, and they can find me here on Tuesdays with all of you guys talking about the Mac and breaking things weekly.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rene.
Thank you, Rene.
Thank you.
Great talking with you. All right, Stories of the Week time. Is it Stories of the Week or Story of the Weeks?
Story of the Week's Pro Max.
Okay, all right, good. I'm happy we cleared that up.
10.
Plus. Speeding up playback of podcasts is nothing new. You ready for this? In fact, many of you are probably listening to this at 2 times the speed, so when I'm talking this fast, it becomes difficult for you to catch all the words and inflections in my tone of voice, and you might miss the point or two, but that's the risk you're willing to take because, let's face it, we're all too damn busy today. So then...
Hold on. Yes, good work.
So then it makes sense in the world of podcasts, let's say, but what about movies and TV shows? Netflix is testing a new feature that brings variable playback speed into the Netflix app on mobile. But is there a difference between the time integrity of podcasts and that of movies and TV shows? What's your opinion? I feel like everybody has an opinion on this. What do you think, Mikah?
Well, this breaks my heart. Yeah, I'm really sad about this. Because look, you know what? Everybody is free to do what they want with media, but I think it speaks to a larger issue. If people don't feel like they have enough time, that they have to speed through a show like that they have to go 2 times watching Madam Secretary, that's tough. Like, what is happening? Is it that our ability to focus continues to decrease more and more and more and more?
Right.
Like, it's the Twitterization of media. I can't watch a whole show in 30 minutes. I need to watch it in 15 minutes so I can watch the next one? Or is it so I can get to work? Whatever it is that's causing the need for speeding through. Because let me be clear. I think speed reading is something that I've practiced on and off for quite a while, and I'm not very good at it because I have not committed the time to do it. I think speed reading makes sense, and the reason why is because there's so much information out there that to be able to speed read, to absorb a piece of information quickly, that makes sense. But when it comes to media, that is there's so much work that people put into it to make it an enjoyable experience. And so if we're not carpe dieming while we're watching these, you know what I mean? We're not spending the time to sort of live in the moment and watch these shows that we allegedly enjoy. That's what worries me. And I keep hitting this microphone over and over again because my hands fly everywhere. Passion, darn it.
And anyone who's listening to this podcast super fast, it is hardly even hearing that. It's like a click to them. So.
Yeah, it's just a little click. And so I think maybe it depends on the goal, because if your goal is to be able to, at work the next day, hit the water cooler with your friends and talk about the latest season of Orange is the New Black, so you put it at 3x so you can get through, then I'm with you. I understand. The point is for you to have that human connection with your friends the next day. But if the point is just to get through this so you can see what's the point then? Why even watch it in the first place? That's where it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, totally. It feels different to me, although Netflix pushes back or has pushed back to say, hey, DVD players, you remember those, used to have these controls as well where you could speed back the playback. So they say we're merely offering it in the same way that it was offered on VCRs and DVD players, and choose to use it, choose to not. It's entirely up to you. But I completely agree. Like, I feel like, I for a long time I was a total movie nerd, movie buff. Like, it was my thing, and even the thought of going against whatever the director's like artistic decision was about a movie would have been blasphemy for me then. Maybe now I understand it a little bit more, only because my life is so busy that literally finding the time to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie rarely happens. And so I feel like these movies are like passing me by, and I just don't have the time to do it. Or if I have time, I have like an hour, and there's nothing worse than sitting down to a really great movie and stopping it halfway and starting it the next day. Like, I want to just like commit, but I have a hard time making that time. So from that perspective, I can understand the desire to. I don't even think it would be enjoyable, even if I did choose to do that. Yeah, I don't think at the end I'd be like, I'm really happy I sped that up because I got through it. It's less about enjoyment. It's more about getting through it. And which is to your point. And I don't think that's why I would choose to watch a movie personally.
Yeah. So, and I want to be clear there. Go ahead and introduce these tools. That's fine. I don't have a problem with people being able to use the technology if they want to. I'm bummed out by, like I said, the larger communication that like the larger issue that results in that leads to that. And only having an hour of time in a given week to be able to do that. Are you at least finding other things to do that are enjoyable and not just part of speeding your life along to the next thing? It gets very very kind of sad kind of quick if you think about it that way. So yeah, I mean, cool. I am happy that, there are probably people listening to this show right now at 3X, because again, this is a show about passing on information. And so I think that it makes sense. We are not, at least, maybe you are, Mr. Musician, but I am not being very careful with my dulcet tones to make sure you're picking up on every little thing I'm putting out.
Let me be clear. This is not a performance.
Correct.
This is real.
Yeah.
Everything that we do here is real.
Very real. There's no performance.
There is no performing going on here whatsoever. There's no artistic direction happening here. This is pure mishap. So, So it sounds like we're kind of on the same page. I'm all about features like this existing. I just don't know. Like, I'd be curious to talk to someone who does this and then is like a total proponent for it. Like, actually, I really enjoyed that movie. Yeah. And be like,
man, I loved Benjamin
2001:
Button.
A Space Odyssey sped up so that it's half as long. Like, I don't believe you.
I love the Lord of the Rings trilogies at 4X.
Right. It only took me 2 hours to get through the trilogy. It was amazing.
You shall not pass.
I don't believe you.
I will say I use the speed up thing all the time on YouTube tutorials, YouTube recipes.
Oh, okay.
Especially
I forget
because,
that you can do it on YouTube.
Yeah, and YouTube already has that feature. I mean, I don't want to sit here and listen to the person talk about, oh yeah, when I made this meal, we sat down with our dog and our cat and we chimed a bell and then we did this and it's like, no, can we just get to the thing? Get to the recipe.
Yeah.
Anywho, after a pack of Amazon Basics batteries burst on her kitchen counter, Sarah Emerson spent a month digging into the origin of one of Amazon's most popular products. As you might expect, it wasn't easy to trace the source, but Amazon did confirm Emerson's reporting when she found what she was looking for. So, Amazon Basics, one of their most popular products, is batteries.
And I've never ordered them.
I have.
Yeah?
And now I've got to give them all side eye because are they going to burst on me?
Okay.
They're 9-volt batteries, they're AA batteries, they're AAA batteries. They're all very well priced, and they even have rechargeable ones. And so I tend to order my batteries from Amazon. But she was kind of curious. Okay, these things exploded. What are the safety precautions that are in place, and where does it go from there? And it started where Emerson went on to Amazon's website, looked into the reviews, and did searches for explosion or explode or splode. And there weren't that many, but there were some reviews among the many that talked about this. And what was interesting, and I think that this speaks to the larger larger, more fascinating concept, which is that Amazon is very secretive about where all of their products come from. Not only that they have a lot of products within the stuff that's marked as Amazon, so like Amazon Basics, Amazon Fresh, and those different ones, but they also own a crud ton of other brands that aren't marked as Amazon. Pinzin, which is like a towel and blanket thing. They've got ones for baby wipes and baby whatever these are called, diapers, and all sorts of stuff. And they don't always mark them as being Amazon. And a big reason for that is because they want to be cutthroat with their pricing. And if another company that makes things, i.e. Walmart, comes along and or distributes things, comes along and can find their supplier, then they can start offering things at those same prices or close to it. So Amazon's pretty secretive and works through like distribution channels and shell companies and things like that to make sure that they keep that a secret. So it turns out that there's a building in West Java, Indonesia, that makes batteries for a Japanese company called Fujitsu. And so Fujitsu owns a company called FDK that runs an alkaline factory in Indonesia where these batteries are made. And it took some work, but Amazon did confirm that they do get batteries from FDK, which is, again, through Fujitsu. What's fascinating here is Indonesia, turns out, is, especially these companies, they do not rank very high at all on environmental friendliness. There are concerns of labor law issues. One of the main ingredients in these batteries is manganese, and manganese is right up there with like diamonds for being for having lots of bad labor practices and like, you know, blood on their hands essentially. And so people who want to be conscious consumers and who buy Amazon products, a lot of times those things don't align, or the lie, it's so blurred to understand sort of where things are coming from. So I don't know, overall, I found this a fascinating look where, you know, I'm thinking on the one hand of, oh, I'm going to buy these batteries because they are a good price and I've had them be reliable. I've never had them explode on me. But how often do you think about sort of tracing a product back to its origins? You don't have time to watch a 2-hour movie.
I don't have time to watch a 2-hour movie, Mikah. That's a very good point. I feel responsibly. I feel the responsibility to at times, and especially with Amazon. Like, I'm very conflicted with Amazon. We've been Prime members for years. We order lots of products from Amazon. They deliver fast. Like, from a customer satisfaction perspective, it's a very high number.
Right.
And that's why Amazon is very successful. But then at the same time, I also know, and I know inside myself before reading this article is kind of confirmation of the feeling that I've had, that a lot of what Amazon has been able to do is because of, I mean, at the end of the day, it's business, and it's cutthroat business. And Amazon's just been able to, you know, basically destroy other businesses along the way because it just has the buying power. It has the money behind it to be able to do that. And it wouldn't be as successful as it is worldwide if it wasn't able to do that. So I'm not at all surprised to read about this. I feel the responsibility to know more about this stuff, which I guess makes me feel kind of a little bit hypocritical. Like, you know, like it's like I know it, but what am I doing in myself? Because really, at the end of the day, it's my actions and my my habits that I can have a direct change in. And and I think a lot of people would ask themselves this as far as Amazon is concerned. Like, are you willing, if you know what Amazon does to be as successful as they are you willing to live without and trade it for something that's maybe less convenient, more expensive, more environmentally responsible, or do you just continue paying that yearly fee of Amazon Prime and living in the world of Amazon? And that's a hard decision to make right now. I feel like it should be so easy, but for whatever reason, it's not.
No, recently on Triangulation interviewed Kate O'Neill, who wrote the book Waste.
Right.
And I'm still facing regular guilt after doing that interview, because one of the things that we talk about is how a lot of times cardboard and paper and things like that are not being recycled because China no longer takes those things from us. And the packing labels on the sides of Amazon boxes, if you leave them on there, they will come, like, even in a place where they do recycle cardboard, leaving those labels on the side will ruin the thing for recycling. So what I've been trying to do is remove the tape and make sure I get all of the labels off the side. If the label is shiny, then it needs to come off. If it's paper completely, like if it doesn't have a shine on it, then it's okay. But there's still places where that recycling still doesn't happen because it's not worth the cost of making that happen. So there's a lot to think about, and being inundated with all of that, of course, adds another layer. And it's a complex thing, but I'm glad that I, read this article, that I can learn a little bit more about not just manganese, but nickel and copper being used or being a big Indonesian export that may be banned from further export. There's a lot to this piece. So I recommend everybody go read it. It's over on 1-0 by Sarah Emerson.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for reporters like Sarah who look at something like this and decide, I'm going to find the source, because that's where my own guilt comes from. It's like, well, why don't, and again, it probably comes back to time.
It's been a month looking to find this.
Right.
So.
Like, I'm just going to go ahead and spend a month looking into the origins of Amazon's batteries. I'm really happy that Sarah can do that.
Do they have an app that lets me speed up time in real life, like on Netflix?
2x time.
2x time app, yeah.
So I know that the next month I'm going to be investigating the origins of these batteries, but I just want to get to the end. I want to know how this ends.
Yeah. $4.99 in the App
yet.
Store.
Not yet. We're working on a time machine.
Okay,
we'll let you know when it's finished.
Right. Working on the time machine, yeah.
All right, well, that's it. We've reached the end of this incredibly serious episode of Tech News Weekly, Halloween edition. This episode publishes, as all of our episodes do, on Thursdays. Only one of them publishes this year on Halloween. twit.tv/TNW is where you can go to subscribe to the show in audio and video and play from the site and all that kind of stuff. Just go there, twit.tv/TNW.
You can also be a part of the show by emailing us at tnw@twit.tv. And of course, follow us on social media. That's at Twit on Twitter, at twit.tv on Instagram, and also head over to twit.community, which is our forum. There are lots of hosts in there. There are lots of great people having conversations. Folks are digging the TNW as well. Yep. So it's been going pretty well.
Yeah.
If for some reason you actually tweet at me with your costumes. Today is Halloween. If you're celebrating Halloween and you want to share your costume, I am at Mikah Sargent on actually all the social things.
Yeah, you're lucky. CC me on that, would you? Is that how you say it with Twitter? CC me on that? Sure, add me, at Jason Howell. I want to see your costumes as well. Thanks to everyone who helps us do the show. We've got Jeff, John, Burke, John, Jeff, and Sarah for the glasses, Jeff, and John, and Leo for the hairs.
Leo, yeah.
And John. And Jeff. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Oh, yeah.